Hello, this is Watch All About with another watch review, and in this review we're looking at the Nove Trident. Now, their claim is that this watch here is the thinnest non-specialist diving watch in the world. Now, obviously that sounds pretty impressive and you'd expect it to be pretty pricey. However, it's only $320 and it is Swiss made as well. So, without further ado, let's check it out. So let's start the unboxing process. Okay, so we have this inner sort of a travel pod. Open that up, and okay, so this travel pod seems pretty secure. You can barely see the watch and it is completely encased in foam. First of all, we've also got this polishing cloth, warranty and little manual as well in the top. So now if I pull this central section out, you see we have the watch in question. So let's get this out of the way. So as you can see, first off, yes, it is most definitely quite a unique and different style. I mean, fair play to them to create something this unique for $320, and the fact that it's Swiss made. Obviously, that's a great plus for them. It won't be for everyone's taste. Let's just face that now. However, the things that it offers is pretty good for the price. So we'll go through it and discuss it. Obviously, look at that height, a mere 6.8 mil tall, so it really is thin, and their statement is quite specific as well. A thinnest non-specialist diving watch. Now this one in particular is 150 meters water resistance. However, new ones are 200 meters water resistance, so that's pretty good. That's all the new ones that you would buy now. If you went to the website now and bought it, you would have one of the new ones with 200 meters water resistance. So yes, it definitely can class as a dive watch. However, the fact that they say non-specialist diving watch, maybe it isn't ISO certified. I couldn't quite clarify what that meant. However, there's no doubt about it. It's thin, and it is decent. It has a decent enough water resistance to go diving with. So that's two key points that are certainly very impressive for the price. So let's just pop it on and discuss some of the specs. So as I mentioned before, the height is the key selling point here. 6.8 millimeters tall. The movement itself is just 1.9 millimeters tall, but we'll discuss that in a little while. It is pretty big, let's face it. 46 mil diameter is the case, and because of the thin height, if you have a smaller wrist, then it most definitely will look like a dinner plate on your wrist. There's no doubt about it. So either you have to be really into larger watches, or you have to have a larger wrist to be able to pass it off, I think. I mean, I've got just over a 7-inch wrist, and I think it's absolutely, on the edge of me being able to pass it off. Lug-to-lug length of 48.7 mil as well. So yeah, I mean, look at it. It's pretty big, there's no doubt about it. However, because of the height, it is very comfortable on, and you'll be able to fit that under anything, let's face it. So any cuff, any shirt, no issues whatsoever, it will go straight underneath it. Weight-wise is 149 grams. That's with a couple of links taken out. I've taken 2 out to be able to fit my wrist. So, that's a pretty good weight. It's not too heavy, it's not too crazy heavy, but it's weighty enough to feel good quality. I mentioned the water resistance, 15 atmospheres or 150 meters on this one, or older ones. However, brand new ones, if you were to go and buy it now, it would be 20 atmospheres or 200 meters. Obviously, yeah, that's pretty good, especially for a watch this thin. No complaints there. You're going to be able to go a decent amount of diving in that. A 1-year warranty, 25.4 mil at the lugs there. However, it does reduce down to 22 mil at the bracelet. Now, the lugs are an interesting shape, so you probably, if you did want to fit a leather strap, for instance, you'd probably have to just hack away at the end to be able to fit in this thinner channel here. But it's nice to see that we have screws to make it easier to remove that. Then the movement, the Ronda Swiss-made 1062 slimline movement is the one that's been used here. Some specs include 4 joules, 1.9 mil high, as I mentioned before, and a pretty impressive 6-year battery life as well. So you're going to be sorted for at least half a decade, which is pretty good. And then finally, it's worth noting that it's Swiss made as well. So obviously that label does matter to to many, and fair enough. And the fact that it's $320, you know, we're getting a lot of watch for our money here. So that equates to about £245 for you people in Britain. The loom used is Superluminova loom, and it is pretty strong. You know, it's certainly slightly above average. Nothing outrageous like a Seiko, for instance, but you can see it, and it does charge reasonably well. Okay, so let's start off with the dial then. As you can see, pretty straightforward dial, really. I mean, all the hands do all the talking, quite a bold sword shape. They are pitched as well, so if I just take it off, we'll be able to see it a little bit closer. So they are pitched, as you can see there. We can see the reflection working nicely. And then apart from that, we have applied elements, basically a little pip at every hour, our logo, and then Swiss made at the bottom. Really simple design, really. I do like the accent of rose gold that's been passed through the entire watch. Obviously, we have the accents of the gold on the dial, but also these ratchets here, and the crown as well uses the rose gold. So I think that works really nicely, the steel and the rose gold, to provide that little bit of difference and that accent as well. Now the pips are relatively deep, if I can get a decent shot of it. However, I would have liked to have seen deeper application of the logo and the Swiss made label as well. It's almost like a bit more of a sticker. So that's a little bit disappointing. I personally probably would have preferred it just to have been printed rather than stuck on like that. You know, it's not to say that it doesn't look nice, because it still reflects light, as you can see. It's just that my personal preference is when something's applied, I really like it to be quite deep. That signifies decent quality. Okay, so I mean, that concludes discussing the dial, because it's that simple, really nice and bold, easily legible as well because of the black base against the bold hands. No seconds hand. The movement doesn't include a seconds hand. Obviously, that's because, well, to keep it that thin. So in reality, although it's a quartz movement, you could, you know, in actual fact, you would never know because it doesn't have a seconds hand at all. So you wouldn't be able to see it ticking or sweeping. So that's a plus in many eyes, that, you know, it doesn't have a seconds hand. Moving on to the case then, so we have a sapphire crystal, nice and flat. We have a layer of anti-reflective coating, which does work pretty accurately. I mean, just in general use, as you can see, it keeps things pretty clear unless you go straight into a light, for instance. But for the most part, it does do a good job. And then moving on to the bezel. So for me, the bezel is, as you can tell, one of the key features to this watch. Very bold, oversized, you know, quite aggressive as well with this teething in the inside. But also a really great plus is the unique ratcheting system that they've used here. Usually bezels are attached via a wire method, whereas these are using obviously a toothed inner section and then these ratchets. That does mean that there is absolutely no backwards play, because obviously each ratchet, there's 3 of them, they get stuck into one of the teeth as you move it around. They're spring loaded, so you can't physically push it back, so no backwards play whatsoever. It's nice that they're different colour as well, so they are the gold. But it's just something so simple, really. I'm surprised I haven't seen it more, you know, used more often. Maybe other watch manufacturers use this technique, but below the scenes. But I'm surprised no one's put it out there and, you know, visible like this, like the Nove or Nove Trident has done. So for me, that actually works to its favour, because it is something very, very unique, very different. And it's really, if you're like me as well and you like to see how the way things work and see it working in action, then it's really, really great to see. So if I just carry on using it, you'll notice just they have very sharp clicks. So it provides decent amount of feedback. They're all perfectly synced as well. So obviously the manufacturing is perfectly accurate. Alignment is spot on as well. You know, it would be quite easy to get this slightly misaligned, but alignment is absolutely spot on. So for me, I think they've done a magnificent job. Obviously, this probably aids to the thin height as well, having it constructed in this way. The bezel itself, so it's sort of like a frosted finish. And then the numerals are raised and polished. Can't complain at all with the quality, really nicely done. As you can see here, even up close, all the numerals are really well, I want to say applied. They're not even applied, they're just engraved, embossed on top of the piece, the steel piece. So there we have it. If I just show you side, you can see the depth of them as well, raise about 0.5 mm up. So moving on to the case main then, we have primarily brushed case, we have a brushed side of the bezel as well, and then we have these polished shoulders as well, so that does provide a little bit of an array of reflections, which is nice. Forgot to mention as well, we can see here we have our screw, which is rose gold as well, so that ties in nicely with the rest of the theme. So despite the thin height of it, you know, they've managed to do a fair amount to keep it interesting. You'd sort of expect it just to be one really thin slab. However, they've, you know, managed to get a few little cheeky little angles in, and you can see the crown guard as well. They're reasonably shapely, so they've done a really good job with making it as interesting as possible despite the incredibly thin height. Now moving on to the crown, as I mentioned before, it's rose gold to match the rest of the accents. I love the angular way that it's manufactured as well, and interestingly, each of these facets is alternating in finish as well. So we can see here this one is polished, whereas the next one is brushed, then the next one is polished, and so on and so forth. So again, that's something that's really, really impressive for something so small. And because it's so small, I sort of wasn't expecting it to be a screw-in crown, however it is. And also our Nove logo is, you know, relatively deeply engraved on the end there. So remarkable qualities really to the crown, really nicely finished and manufactured. Moving on to the case back, pretty standard really, nothing too exciting. Primarily brushed, polished, sorry, with this frosted ring with details ever slightly raised inside it. Nothing too exciting, however it does the job. It's fixed in with 4 screws. So finally, the bracelet. I do like the shape of the lugs, and just like the case, you know, they're relatively slender as well, so they do fit nicely on the wrist. If I just pop it on, as you can see. So we have polished sides, and then quite an interesting design, certainly very eye-catching. You know, it goes for the entirety of the watch really, but quite, you know, an interesting shape here where the lugs are interlinked. Completely brushed top as well, which is good for legibility. And then we have the logo here on the butterfly clasp. So the innards of the butterfly clasp mainly polished, nice and easy to use thanks to the 2 pushers either side, and it's nice that the logo overlays. So as you can see here, we have a slight section where this logo, nice and thick, sits on top. So again, the alignment of that is really good. Nice deep engraving on that. So the attention to detail is really, really impressive. Let's get the macro lens on then and have a look at it in even closer detail. So starting off with the dial. So here we have our logos. You can see a little bit on the light, thin side. When you compare it to the hour markers, you can see there we have some nice cheeky little depths to them. They are bulbous, so quite difficult to get side on, but you can sort of see the reflection there, giving us the level of depth on there. Moving on to the hands, so you can see our rose gold finishing and our loomed center section. We can also see our pitch as well, with that line down the center. So pretty neat and tidy up close. Then we have our Swiss made label in the bottom half as well. So we've got a very, you know, a dark, very light texture to the base of the dial, which provides, you know, a nice soft backdrop as well. Moving on to the case then. What better place to start than this ratcheting system on the bezel, as you can see here, nicely aligned up. Now, one key issue with this sort of exposed system is the fact that, yes, you do get a bit of fluff in this channel, as you can see. However, give it a blast of canned air, and I'm sure it will tidy it up. So if I just start rotating the bezel, we can see it in action. Can't really see a whole lot of movement this side. However, if we move it up here, and I continue, it's a bit difficult getting it aligned. There we go, you can see it bend down, and then just spring back just like that. Finally, looking at our frosted base and the polished, raised markers. As you can see, very neatly, nicely done. Nice and bold as well, so easy to read. So moving on to the side, here we go. Here's our nice edging to the bezel, really thick teeth on the grip as well, makes it really easy to grip. And moving on to the case, so here's one of our screws for the strap and our brushed side. Moving on to our crown guards with polished top there, and our crown itself. You can see the depth there of the logo, and then we can also see our alternating finish on the crown as well. So I love the angular style to the crown. Considering it's so small, you know, they've done a really great job on that. And then just having a look down here at the lug, we have this polished corner on the lug as well. So just quickly flipping it over to the case back. So we can see our details quite lightly raised. Nothing too overly exciting, but it does a good job. And obviously it's just nice and thin, basically, isn't it? Which is the primary reason behind this style of case back. Okay, and then finally moving on to the bracelet. So here's our brush top of the lug with our shape there. Flipping it over to the side, we have our polished edges with our standard pins inside. On the underside, it's completely brushed, so that's nice and soft on your wrist. Nicely sort of rounded as well. Each link is ever so slightly rounded. And then finally, having a look at the buckle, we can see there lovely detailing on the logo there. You know, really deeply stamped with a frosted base to it. Very impressive, and our alignment is really good as well. Then just opening it up one side, and then opening it up this side as well. Here's some of the bits underneath with our pusher on the side there. So there we have it. I mean, it is a very, very impressively built watch. In terms of construction, the only negative thing really is the depth of the applied elements on the dial, the logo and Swiss made. The hour markers, they are, you know, to a suitable depth. But for me personally, I would like them to either be changed to printed or to be a little bit deeper. Everything else is really, really good. I mean, you got to keep in mind the fact that it's only $320 or around £245. You know, the fact that it's so thin, the fact that it has this really unusual, unique bezel mechanism, and the fact that it's Swiss made as well, it's really, really impressive. You know, with 200 meters water resistance as well. They've done such a great job in creating a unique, well-built watch for a really affordable price. So I have been very, very impressed by it. Now, the design is going to be the main factor behind it, because there's no doubt about it. It is a unique design. It's quite bold, it's quite loud, it's quite shouty despite its thin height. You know, that bezel is definitely there to be seen, no doubt about it. And the rose gold accents, you know, may not be for everyone. However, you can get different colorways if you check out the website. So for me, the design is a bit hit and miss. I personally prefer a slightly more traditional diver. However, there's not to say that I have been impressed with it, you know, and when I do wear it, it is very eye-catching and people notice it, that's for sure. So yeah, really, really good watch for the money. It's very rare that I come across watches which are a bit different nowadays, and this is certainly one of them. So kudos to Nove for making something like that, and it has been a joy to wear as well. So that's certainly something going for it, especially for the surprisingly cheap price that I personally would say, you know, the price is very, very good for what it is. Okay, so that was the Nove Trident. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and also comment your thoughts as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.